Red Eyes Chapter 1. In the dark, Eva was a young woman trying to make a living as a writer. One day, while looking for inspiration to write a new horror novel, she saw an interesting ad on the internet. Someone was looking for brave people who wanted to spend a weekend in an old mansion. The manor was said to be cursed due to terrible events in the past. Eva did not want to miss this opportunity. He would both experience adventure and find new story material. She immediately applied to the ad and learned that she was accepted. On Friday evening, Eva took her luggage and got on the bus. The road to the mansion was long and lonely. When Eva looked out the window of the bus, she saw a huge structure rising out of the dark forest. The sight of the mansion gave Eva goosebumps. Its windows were broken, its walls were covered with moss, and its door was surrounded by a rusty iron fence. Eva got off the bus and came to the front of the mansion. There was an old man greeting him at the door. The man smiled at Eva and extended his hand. "Hello, I'm Mr. Collins. I was waiting for you. I am the owner of the mansion." Eva shook the man's hand and introduced herself. "Hello, I'm Eva. Thank you for your interest. It's very exciting to spend a weekend in this mansion." Mr. Collins invited Eva in. Come on. Let me introduce you to the other guests. They are all brave and curious people like you." Eva followed Mr. Collins into the mansion. The corridors were dark and dusty. Faded portraits and old paintings hung on the walls. Eva felt a chill inside the mansion. Mr. Collins led Eva into a large hall. A fireplace was burning in the living room. 4 people were sitting around the fireplace. Mr. Collins introduced Eva to them. "Friends, I would like to introduce you to a new guest. This is Eva, a writer. Eva, these are my other guests. Jack is a journalist, Lily is a student, Tom is a lawyer, and Anna is a nurse. They all want to discover the secrets of the mansion, just like you." Eva greeted the other guests. They all looked young and sympathetic. Eva immediately bonded with them. Mr. Collins called Eva over to show her her room. "Eva, come on, let me take you to your room. I hope you will be comfortable." Eva followed Mr. Collins. The man took him to a room on the 2nd floor. The room was small and simple. It had a bed, a wardrobe, a table, and a chair. Its window overlooked the garden. Eva liked her room. He left his suitcase on the bed and thanked Mr. Collins. "Thank you very much, Mr. Collins. My room is beautiful. It will be very interesting to stay in this mansion with you." Mr. Collins smiled at Eva and put a hand on her shoulder. "You're welcome, Eva. Nice to meet you too. I hope you have a nice time here, but I have an advice for you. Do not wander around this mansion after midnight. This place can be very dangerous in the dark. Red Eyes may be watching you." Eva was surprised by Mr. Collins' words. Red Eyes? What do they mean? When Mr. Collins saw Eva's curious look, he continued laughing. "Don't worry, Eva. Just a legend. It is said that many years ago, a family living in this mansion was murdered by a red-eyed monster. Since that day, red eyes have been seen shining in this mansion after midnight. But don't believe them. Just the story. Now I wish you good night. See you tomorrow morning at breakfast." Mr. Collins said goodnight to Eva and left the room. Eva closed the door and lay down on her bed. The red eyes couldn't get out of his mind. Was there really such a monster? Or did Mr. Collins say that to scare her? While Eva was thinking about these, she fell asleep. Chapter 2. Crimson Eyes. The next morning when Eva woke up, sunlight was pouring into her room. He looked at his watch. It was past 9:30. Eva immediately got out of bed and got dressed. Then she took out a notebook and a pen from her suitcase. He decided to write down the story of the red eyes that Mr. Collins told him last night. Maybe it could be the subject of his new novel. Eva wrote Red Eyes as the title in her notebook. Then he briefly summarized the story. The story was like this: Red Eyes. Many years ago, a rich and happy family named Avery lived in this mansion. The Avery family had 2 children, Edward and Elizabeth. Edward was a 10-year-old girl, and Elizabeth was an 8-year-old girl. While the Avery family was living peacefully in the mansion, one day a guest came to the mansion. The guest's name was Richard. Richard was a distant relative of the Avery family. Richard caught the attention of the Avery family as soon as he arrived at the mansion. Because Richard was a very strange man. He had no hair, beard, eyebrows, or eyelashes. His skin was pale and rough. His eyes were red in color. Richard told the Avery family that he was like this because of an illness. The Avery family took pity on Richard and decided to host him at the mansion. During his stay at the mansion, Richard took care of the Avery family's children. Elizabeth, in particular, attracted Richard's attention because Elizabeth was a very beautiful and innocent girl. Every time Richard saw Elizabeth, he tried to get closer to her. He was caressing, kissing, and hugging Elizabeth. Elizabeth was disturbed by Richard's behavior, but she was afraid to go against Richard because Richard was looking at him threateningly. Elizabeth knew Richard's secret. Richard was actually a monster. One night, as Elizabeth was passing Richard's room, she heard him making a terrible noise. Elizabeth was curious and looked into Richard's room. What he saw horrified him. Richard was not lying in his bed. In its place was a red-eyed, hairy-clawed, toothed creature. The creature was eating a bloody piece of meat. Elizabeth recognized the creature as Richard. Richard was a werewolf, not a human. Elizabeth was about to scream in fear when the creature noticed her. The creature jumped out of its bed to lunge at Elizabeth. Elizabeth escaped from the room at the last moment and closed the door. The creature began scratching at the door. Elizabeth ran to her family. She told her family that Richard was a werewolf and was trying to kill her. Her family did not believe Elizabeth's words. They thought he was having a nightmare and dreaming. They tried to calm Elizabeth down, but Elizabeth insisted that Richard was a monster. When her family could not convince Elizabeth, they sent her to her room. Elizabeth went to her room and locked the door. But Elizabeth wasn't safe in her room either, because the creature managed to break the door. The creature entered Elizabeth's room and approached her. Elizabeth tried to escape from the creature, but the creature caught him and threw him on the bed. The creature sank its teeth into Elizabeth's neck. Elizabeth screamed in pain. Her family heard Elizabeth scream and ran to her room, but it was too late. Elizabeth was dead. The creature was drinking his blood. When his family saw the creature, they were horrified. The creature was preparing to attack them, but just then there was a knock on the door of the mansion. The creature looked at the door and ran away. His family opened the door. There were police at the door. Police said that a report came to the mansion. Someone had reported a murder at the mansion. His family told the police that Richard was a werewolf and that he killed Elizabeth. The police didn't believe them. They thought they were crazy. His family showed the police to Richard's room, but in Richard's room, instead of the creature, there was Richard's corpse. Richard was bleeding from his throat. The police thought Richard had committed suicide. His family told the police that Richard was a werewolf and that he did not kill himself. But the police did not listen to them. They detained them. As his family was leaving the mansion, they heard the creature laughing. The creature waved at them. The creature was not Richard. Richard was the creature's victim. The creature was disguised as Richard. The creature remained in the mansion, and his crimson eyes continued to shine after midnight. Chapter 3. The End. After finishing her story, Eva closed her notebook and left her room. She wanted to go down to breakfast, but there was a surprise waiting for him in the corridor. Mr. Collins appeared before him. Mr. Collins smiled at Eva and extended his hand. "Hello, Eva. How are you? I hope you slept well." Eva shook Mr. Collins' hand and smiled. "Hello, Mr. Collins. I am good, thanks. Yes, I slept well. How are you?" Mr. Collins approached Eva and whispered in her ear. "I'm fine too, Eva. But let me tell you a secret. I'm not actually Mr. Collins. I am the red-eyed monster, and you are my new victim." Eva could not believe Mr. Collins's words. She thought he was making a joke, but Mr. Collins wasn't kidding. Mr. Collins sank his teeth into Eva's neck. Eva screamed in pain, but no one heard him, because there was no one else in the mansion. The other guests had all fallen victim to the creature. The creature was disguised as them, After killing Ava, the creature disguised itself as her. The creature took Ava's notebook and read the story she wrote. The creature liked the story. On the last page of the notebook, the creature wrote in his own handwriting, "This story is based on a true incident. I, the red-eyed monster, killed Eva who wrote this story, and now I'm after you. You too will be my victim, because I see everything with my red eyes, and I will never leave you." The creature closed the notebook and smiled. Then he left the mansion. He went looking for new victims, and his crimson eyes continued to shine after midnight. The end.